Hey guys, it's Rishi once again. Welcome back to yet another maths video. And in today's maths video, we're going to be going through a 2020 Foundation Paper 1 non-calculator paper. And let's make this session as interactive as possible, as we have with our previous sessions. Feel free to pause the video throughout the entire paper, attempt the questions, and then play them where we will then go through the solutions together. And as earlier, I won't go through each individual topic in detail, as that would take far too long, but I will have some sort of expectation that you do have an understanding of the basics around each individual topic. If for any reason you would like me to focus more on a particular topic, please feel free to comment below, where I will go ahead and do that. Without further ado, let's get started. Question number 1. Write the following numbers in order of size, starting with the smallest. So what I tend to do here now is write out all of my numbers in a vertical fashion. So starting with the first, let's go with 0.32, 0.4, and just filling in all of the gaps that we have. 0.35 and 0.309. Let's fill out our zeros. Before taking out the smallest number, which in this case would be 309. Followed by the second number, which is 320, so that's 0.32, and then 0.35, finishing off with 0.4. And that way you can ensure that you never go wrong. Question number 2. Here is a list of numbers, and from the list, write down a multiple of 3. So that's a number that 3 goes into without a remainder. So again, we'll pick 18, because 3 times 6 equals 18. Question number 3. Write 4.666 correct to the nearest whole number. So again, as we know that the 6 is larger than 5, we're going to round up to number 5. And question number 4. Write 3/4 as a decimal. So for this particular question, I'm going to simply divide 3 by 4. And let's now see, how many times does 4 go into 3? Well, we know 4 doesn't go into 3 because 4 is much larger than 3. So I'm going to put a decimal just after the 3, a 0 on top, and a 0 after 3. And now that's going to become 30. So how many times does 4 go into 30? Well, we know 4 times 7 is 28. So we'll put 7 at the top, 28 at the bottom, and we'll get our remainder, which is now 2. And then we'll try to see if 4 goes into 2. But we know it doesn't. So let's make 2 into 20. And we know that 4 times 5 is 20 without no remainder. So our answer is now going to be 0.75. Okay, let's move over to question number 5. So for question number 5, it's asking us to write down the value of the 7 in the number 8765. So let's partition this. So we have 8,000 in our thousands column. We have 700 in our hundreds column. We have 60, which is in our tens, and then 5, which is in our units. So the value of 7 in the number 8,765 is 700. And let's move over to question 6. So Geeta spins a fair 8-sided spinner. And on the probability scale, we need to mark with a cross the probability that the spinner will land on C. So the first thing I'm going to do is simply count how many sections we have. And in this particular spinner, we have 8 sections, with C taking 4 of them. So as we know, 4/8 is equivalent to a half, we can simply draw a cross in the center of our scale. And likewise for question B, we need to mark with a cross the probability that the spinner will land on D. So from looking at the spinner, we only have the letters A, B, and C. So the probability that the spinner will land on D will be 0. So we can go ahead and write that out. Let's go for question number 7. So the incomplete pictogram shows information about the number of eggs sold on a farm on Monday. So again, we can see that we've got 18 eggs sold on Monday, and we've been given 6 parts. So to find out what each part is worth, we're going to simply divide 18 by 6, giving us 3. So we now know that each part is worth 3 eggs. And so our key will equal 12 eggs for every 4 sections. So now we need to go ahead and do the same for Tuesday and Wednesday. So for Tuesday, we've got 24 eggs, and we know that one section is worth 12 eggs. So I can simply go ahead and draw 2 sections here of 4. And for Wednesday, we have 27 eggs. So again, let's do 2 sections, which accounts for 24 eggs, and then a quarter, which is 3. Let's go to question number 8. So this is where we need to plot the coordinates of point A. So again, we can go directly up and then across to our y-axis. So that gives us 2, 3. And then we need to go ahead and write out the coordinates of point B. Well, we know we start from our x-axis and we can go all the way down to 1. So we've got 0 on our x-axis and minus 1 on our y-axis. And then finally, it's asking us to mark with a cross the point -2, 1 and label it C. So let's find our -2 on our x-axis, go up to find 1, and we can now mark across here and label it as C. So always remember across the corridors and up the stairs. Okay, question number 9. A bag contains red counters and blue counters only. And so the number of red counters to the blue counters is 3 to 4. So we can simply write red to blue. And so we now need to write the fraction of the counters that are red. So let's go ahead and add these together. 3 plus 4 equals 7. So we now know that there's 7 parts in total. And out of the 7 parts that are in total, 3 are red. So the fraction could simply be 3 over 7. And so now part B is asking us to write the ratio of 12 to 30 in the form of 1 to n. So let's go ahead and start off by dividing both by 2, which gives us 6 to 15. So again, divide by 2. We can then find a common multiple, which is 3. And again, divide this by 3, which gives us 2. And 15 divided by 3 gives us 5. And we're getting really close to our 1 to n. So now again, we can divide both sides by 2, which gives us 2.5. So our ratio 12 to 30 is written as 1 to 2.5, which is our n. Okay, question number 10. Jenny has 12 marbles, and a quarter of these 12 marbles are large. So again, we need to find a quarter of 12. Remember here that we need to divide by our denominator and multiply by our numerator. So 12 divided by 4 gives us 3, and 3 times 1 gives us 3. So we now have 3 large marbles. And the rest of these 12 marbles are small. So we can now have 12 take away 3, which gives us 9, and that is our small marbles. And each large marble has a weight of 70 grams, and the small marble has a weight of 50 grams. So let's work out the total weight of the 12 marbles. So we'll start off with our large, and we'll have 3 multiplied by 70, which gives us 210 grams. And we'll have our 9 multiplied by 50, which gives us 450 grams. And let's go ahead and add these two figures together, which gives us 660 grams as our final answer. So the total weight of the 12 marbles are 660 grams. I hope that question was clear. Let's now move over to question 11. And just to reiterate, don't forget to pause the video, attempt the questions for yourself before pressing play and going through the solutions. So question number 11. Reflect the shaded shape in the mirror line. So the first thing we're going to do is find out the distance each point is away from that mirrored line. So the first thing I'm going to do is see that it's 2 spaces away from the mirror line. So I'm going to put my dot 2 spaces away from my mirror line on the left hand side. We'll then do the same for our second point, which is just 1 away. So I'll also make another point 1 away. We can see our third point is 1 down. So I'll also make a point 1 down. And then our fourth point is 1 across. So I'll also make a point 1 across. Before finally seeing that we have 4 units up. So I'll find my point 4 units up. And I'll make my mark there. Before going ahead and joining all of these points. So let's go ahead and get our ruler and start joining those points. Before our final point, and there we are. That is now our shape reflected onto the left hand side. And let's move over to question 12. So this diagram shows a number machine, and now we need to find the output when the input is 7. So let's go ahead and write out 7. Let's multiply this by 2, which gives us 14, and then subtract 3, which gives us 11. Now we can go ahead and write that down. But now we need to find the input when the output is 41. So this is where we are going to take the inverse approach. We're going to do the opposite of everything that is stated. So as it states -3, I'm going to add 3, which gives me 44. And as it says multiplied by 2, I'm now going to divide it by 2, which gives me 22. So my overall answer is 22 when my output is 41. Amazing. This diagram shows 2 points. So this question is related to bearings. Now it may be slightly difficult as I haven't got this printed out, so it is going to be a challenge to measure this angle, but let's try our best. So the diagram shows 2 points, A and B, on a map. And the scale is given 1 to 25,000. And we need to find the bearing of B from A. So just a quick rule here, we have 3 main rules we need to follow as part of bearings. The first is that we should always start from north. The second is that we always work clockwise. And the third is that our answers always have to be in 3 digits. For example, if our answer was to be 30 degrees, we would write 0, 3, 0. Or if our answer was to be 25 degrees, we would then write 0, 2, 5. So I hope those 3 steps are embedded in your mind. Once again, you start from the north position, you always go clockwise, and you always output your answers as 3 digits. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my ruler, and I'm going to join points A and B together. Now I've gone ahead and done that, I'm going to go ahead and measure the angle from A to B. And again, as we need to use the rule of going clockwise by measuring this angle, this would then give us our bearing, which in this case would actually be anything between 23 to 27 degrees. We're going to go for 25, and that's how we would answer this particular question. But part B states work out the real distance between A and B. So again, if I go ahead and bring out my ruler, we don't have any points on here, but let's go ahead and imagine this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, and this is 6. So on my computer, it would be 6 centimeters. But again, this would be different if it was printed out, because if I was to zoom in and then select my ruler, you can now see that it becomes a larger amount than 6 centimeters. So do remember, when you have your ruler and it's printed out, that would be the correct answer. So on this basis, I'm going to go with 5 as my centimeters, as my real distance. So 5 centimeters on the map. And as it's given us a scale of 1 to 25,000, we need to now multiply our 5 by 25,000. And by doing so, we now get 125,000 centimeters, which again, we can convert into meters before converting it into kilometers. So we know that's 1,000. So we know that's 1,250 meters, and that's 1.25 kilometers. So our final answer will be 1.25. And again, within this question, we do have acceptable answers, which could be the range of 1.2 to 1.3. Question number 14. Ishmael asked 30 students at college to tell him the sport they each like the best, from cricket or tennis or swimming. And so 11 of the 20 female students said swimming, 2 of the male students said tennis, and 5 students said cricket. So now in this specific question, we need to simply complete the two-way table with the information they've given us. So let's start off with the first. 11 of the 20 female students said swimming. So we find our female students and we know that it is 11. And then 2 of the male students said tennis. So we know the male students are tennis. And then 5 students said cricket. So 5 students will be our total as cricket because it doesn't define if it's a male or a female. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and fill out the other spaces. So we see our total is 30 and we know that there's 20 female students, so there must be 10 male students. And then we have a statement that states the number of male students who said cricket was the same is the same as the number of male students who said swimming was the same. So as we have 10 as our total of male students, we know that our cricket and swimming is going to be the same. So now we subtract 2 from 10, which gives us 8. And because cricket and swimming are the same, we divide 8 by 2, which gives us 4 for each section. And now that we've done that, it makes things much easier. We can now have a total number of students who like swimming, and that's going to be 15. We can now work out the number of female students that like cricket by simply subtracting 4 from 5, which gives us 1. And then we can also calculate the number of female students who like tennis by simply adding 1 to 11, which gives us 12, and then subtracting that from 20, which gives us 8. And then finally adding up all of the students who have chosen tennis, which gives us 10. And there we are. So again, it is slightly tricky and the wording is slightly off for this specific sentence, but I hope you can see how the same students who chose cricket also chose swimming, and so we had to subtract 2 from 10 and then divide it by 4 to get the values for cricket and swimming. Okay, let's move over to question 15. Jamil makes a drink by mixing 1 part of orange squash with 9 parts of water. So again, this is a question based on ratio. So we've got 1 part of orange, 9 parts of water. So in total, we have 10 parts. And he uses 750 milliliters of orange squash. So we now know that 1 part equals 750 milliliters. And Jamil is going to put the drink he has mixed into a 1 litre bottle. So work out the greatest number of 1 litre bottles that Jamil can completely fill. So the first thing we're going to do is simply multiply 750 milliliters by our 10 parts, which gives us 7,500 milliliters. And as we know, that is our total. The greatest number that we can get is 7.5 liters. But because he is putting these in 1 litre bottles, we can infer that he can put them in 7 liters. So that is our final answer, 7 liters. I hope that was clear. Let's now move over to question 16. So the table gives information about the number of points scored by each of 16 students in a game. Tina worked out the median of the number of points scored to be 5. Let's explain why it is not possible for the median to be 5. Well, if we take a look here now, we've got a number of points and we've got our frequency. But let's not get mixed up with our frequency and what points the student scored. What the frequency is merely telling us is that 3 students have scored 1 point, or 5 students have scored 2 points. So in this table, it doesn't show us if any student has scored 5 points. And in fact, none of the students have scored 5 points. All of the points were simply lower than 5, and that would be our explanation. And there we are. Let's now move over to part B. Tina also worked out the total number of points scored by the 16 students in the game. And below is her working out. And Tina made a mistake in her working to find the total number of points scored. Well, let's go through this. 0 times 1 is 0, so anything multiplied by 0 is going to be 0. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 3 is 12. So if we go ahead and add this up, we've got 12, which is here, 12 over here, 10 is correct, 3 is correct, but oops, we've got 1 when it should be 0. So 0 times 1 is 0. It's not 1. And there is our solution. So again, make sure you have that eagle eye for attention. Okay, question 17. We're almost done. Keep up the great work. In a shop, a TV has a normal price of £500. The shop has a sale. On Monday, the normal price of the TV is reduced by 1/10 to give the sale price. So we need to simply work out 1/10 of 500. And remember what we need to do here? We need to divide by our denominator and times by our numerator. So 500 divided by 10 is 50, and we times that by 1. So we now know 1/10 of 500 is £50. So it's been reduced by £50, which means the sale price is now £450. It then states that on Tuesday, the sale price of the TV is reduced further by 20%. So now we need to work out 20% of our new value, which is £450. So again, I follow a two-step method here. The first step is where you simply multiply 450 by 20. We know that is 9,000. And then the second step is where you simply divide it by 100. So 9,000 divided by 100. We can cross out 2 zeros and we're left with 90. So we know that 20% of £450 is £90. So now let's go ahead and subtract that. 450 minus 90 is £360. That is our new value. And so Chris states that he has £400 to spend on the TV. Does Chris have enough money to buy the TV on Tuesday? He definitely does. And that is because £360 is less than £400. And that is your answer. You can simply say yes because 400 can be greater than 360. That would also be acceptable. Perfect. That's 5 marks in the bag. So I hope you can see how we've gone ahead and worked out 1/10 and then a further 20% before finally seeing if he's got enough money or not. Okay, question number 18. Work out an estimate for this expression. So in these type of questions, they're fairly simple. And this is where you need to round each value to the nearest 10 and then computing that expression. So let's round 790 to 800 and 289 to 300 before dividing this by 50. So we know that 8 times 3 is 24. I'm then going to go ahead and add the 4 zeros, and then I'm going to divide this by 50. So what I'm going to do here to make things easier is double both numbers. So I'm going to times the top and the bottom by 2, which gives me 480,000 divided by 100. And again, I'm going to cross out 2 zeros as I've done there, and I'm left with 4,800. So my answer will be 4,800. Remember, we cannot use a calculator. We want to work smart as well as working hard. So I know many of you would really struggle with dividing 240,000 by 50, or those that would want to spend a long time having a long division and trying to simplify the hard work. Find a common number. And like we did, we multiplied both numerator and denominator by 2, and then simply divided it by 100 and got our answer. Amazing. Question 19. Expand the brackets. So again, let's go ahead and multiply x by x, which gives us x squared, and then x into minus 4, which gives us minus 4x. And then now we do the opposite. We factorize. So this is where we need to find one common number between 15 and 10. I pick 5. And let's see how many times 5 goes into 15. Well, it goes in 3 times, followed by the y. And 5 goes into 10 twice, and there we have it. 5 3y minus 2. And then let's go for part C. We need to solve. And what this means is we need to find the value of f. So let's go ahead and expand our brackets first. We have 7f minus 35 equals 28. Again, I did 7 times f, which is 7f, and 7 times minus 5, which is minus 35. I then have to add 35 on both sides because I am taking the minus 35 to the other side of the equation. So that gives me 7f equals 63. And now, just to note here, whenever we have a number alongside a variable, which would be our f, that means we multiply it. So 7 times f gives us 63. So then we divide both sides by 7, and we know that 63 divided by 7 is 9, so f equals 9. Let's now move over to question number 20, where we're given 5 terms of an arithmetic sequence. And we need to write down an expression in terms of n for the nth term of the sequence. Well, let's go ahead and rewrite this. And let's go ahead and find out the difference between each number. And you can now see that you need to add 3 every time. So instantly, we're going to have 3n. And with 3n, let's go ahead and give some values. Let's say our point is 1. So 3 times 1 is going to be 3. Let's say our second number is 2. So 3 times 2 is 6, followed by 3, which gives us 9, and 4, which gives us 12. Once we've gone ahead and done that, we then need to see the difference between these numbers. So the difference between our first set, 1 and 3, would be 2. And that again is 1 minus 3, which would give you a minus 2. So the difference here would be minus 2. So if you collect that together, that would be 3n minus 2. And another way is simply to get our first difference here, and that's 1 minus 3 equals minus 2. Okay, question 21. We now need to show that this is correct. So again, if you want to, just like I'm sure you've done with the previous questions, pause the video here, attempt the question, and then press play when you're ready to go through the solutions. Okay, so there's 2 different methods that we can take to resolve this. The first thing I'm going to do is convert my mixed fractions to an improper fraction. So a mixed fraction is when you have a whole number and a proper fraction. So what I'm going to do first is write out 2, 1 over 3, and I'm going to convert this to an improper fraction. So an improper fraction is when the numerator, which in this case is a 1, is larger than your denominator. So in order to convert from a mixed fraction to an improper fraction is where you need to multiply your whole number and your denominator and then simply add your numerator. So let's go ahead and do that. 2 times 3 gives us 6, plus 1 is 7. So this will equal 7 over 3. Note here, do not change your denominator. Your denominator always has to remain the same. So we've done it for the first one. So let's now do this with our second fraction. So we have 3 and 3 over 4. So again, let's multiply our denominator with our whole number. 3 times 4 is 12. And then let's go ahead and add the 3. And that gives us 15. So we should now have 15 over 4. So 3 times 4 is 12, plus the 3 is 15. Just as we did 2 times 3 is 6, and then plus the 1, which gives us 7. So now all we need to merely do is put these 2 fractions together and multiply them. Wonderful. So the first thing we can do is simplify our fraction. We know that 3 and 15 go into the same times table. So we can change 3 to 1, and we can change 15 to 5. Because 1 times 3 is 3, and 3 times 5 is 15. So 3 is our common number here. So we now have 7 over 1 times 5 over 4. And when you multiply a fraction, you can simply multiply it directly with your numerator and your denominator. So 7 times 5 gives us 35, and 1 times 4 gives us 4. So we now have 35 over 4. But hey, that's a different answer from 8 3/4. So let's go ahead and see if they are equal. So the first thing I'm going to do here is write out 35 over 4. And because this is an improper fraction, we can tell this because the numerator is bigger. And we call this top heavy. So the numerator is larger than our denominator. So let's now see how many times does 4 go into 35? Well, we know 4 times 8 is 32, so we can write a large 8 there. And then we can subtract 32 from 35, which gives us 3, which is our numerator. And then our denominator will always remain the same, and that is 8/3/4, which is exactly the same what was written out. So we've now proved that 2 1/3 multiplied by 3 3/4 gives us 8 3/4. Beautiful. Question 22. In portrait mode for this question. Righty. So the diagram shows us 4 graphs. Graph A, B, C, and D. And for each of these equations, we need to match the correct graph. So let's take our first one, graph A. Well, this graph looks as if it's inversely proportional. And for that reason, for those who have practiced this topic, inversely proportional always tends to mean that we have a fraction. So looking at the table here, we know that the last one, y equals 1/x, would be our A. Because for whatever value we have as our x, it's going to be inversely proportional for our second graph. And then let's go for graph B. And for graph B, we know it's coming on the left-hand side. So for the left-hand side, we know it's going to be a minus. So again, this is going to be y equals minus x cubed, which we'll write as our letter B. Before moving over to graph C. And graph C looks the total opposite of graph B. And we know it's on the right side, so it's going to be a positive. So we then know that graph C is going to be y equals x cubed. And then we're left with our final one, which is graph D. This is x squared. And we know that because it's got a happy face. That's the way I remember it. Let's now dive into our next question, question 23. Okay, so now for question 23, the diagram shows 4 triangles. And 2 of these triangles are congruent. So for those who have forgotten what congruent means, that is the same. So when 2 triangles are the same, they are considered to be congruent. And so now we need to write down the letters of these 2 triangles. So let's see what information we've been given. We've been given 2 angles here, so we can calculate the third angle. And we know that all angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So 55 and 45 gives us 100. So 180 minus 100 will give us 80 degrees. So we now know the third angle is 80 degrees. For our triangle B, we're not really given much information. Likewise, for triangle C, we're not really given enough information. But for triangle D, we have 45, which is common, and 80, which is also common, which leaves our third angle to be 55 degrees. So by saying that, we can infer that triangle A and D are both the same. So we can now state that triangle A and D are both congruent. Wonderful. Let's go over to question 24. So Sam pays £10 for 24 chocolate bars. He sells all 24 chocolate bars for 50p each. So let's work out Sean's percentage profit. So the first thing we need to do is figure out what formula we're going to be using. So as it's a percentage profit, that's going to be our change divided by our original multiplied by 100. So let's go ahead and work out how much profit he makes. So we'll have 24 chocolate bars and we're going to multiply this by 1/2, and that gives us £12. So he's now sold all 24 chocolate bars for 50p each, and that's given him £12. But out of the £12, he's paid £10 for this. So let's subtract 10 from 12, and we now have £2 as his profit. So let's work out what £2 is as a percentage out of £10. So our change is 2 over our original, which is 10, and then we times 100. And we now know we can divide 100 by 10, which gives us 10. We then multiply this by 2, which gives us 20. So we can now see that £2 is 20% of £10. I hope that question was clear. Let's now go for question 25. So ADC is a triangle, and AED and ABC are straight lines. So let's go ahead and write this out. So it's stating that AED as well as ABC are all straight lines. They've given us two angles, and we now need to work out the size of angle EAB, and that is here, E to A to B. So what's the first thing we need to do here? Well, we can instantly see that AEB is a corresponding angle, and we know that corresponding angles are equal. So let's go ahead and draw our F angle. So now if angle D is 63, then angle E also must be 63 degrees. So now we've written that out. We also know that angle ABC is a straight line, and we know that angles on a straight line add up to 180. So let's go for 180 minus 148, which gives us 32 degrees. So we now know this angle is 32 and this angle is 63. And as before, we know that angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So we can go ahead and simply subtract 63 and 32 from 180 degrees. So we know that 63 and 32 gives us 95, and 180 minus 95 gives us 85. So we now know angle A is 85 degrees. So the size of angle EAB is 85 degrees. So what have I used here? Step 1, we have corresponding angles. And again, with those corresponding angles, we can say that is AEB. Step 2, we then understood that angles on a straight line add up to 180. And then by doing so, that's now given me the answer of EAB. Question number 26. I must say, if you've come this far, you're doing really, really well. And you yourself know how well you've done. So keep it up. Don't give up. Okay, question 26. The total shows information about the heights in centimeters of a group of Year 9 girls. So this stem and leaf diagram shows information about the heights in centimeters of a group of Year 9 boys. So we've got a table with information of Year 9 girls and a stem and leaf diagram of information of the Year 9 boys. So then it tells us to compare the distribution of the heights of the girls with the distribution of the heights of the boys. So let's go ahead and work this out. So what can we see here? The greatest height of the girls were 170 centimeters, but the boys were taller on average, with being 182 centimeters. So the first point we'll write, so the boys were taller on average. And so the next thing to point out was the median of the girls was 165 centimeters. But if we calculate the median of the boys, let's find that out. We've got 8290, and I'm going to continue doing this until I get to the center, which is again 168. So we now know that the boys' median is also higher. That's 2 points in the bag so far. And lastly, let's take a look at the range. So the range here is now your largest take away your smallest. So for the girls, we have 170 take away 150, which gives us 20 centimeters. But for the boys, we've got 158 and 182. So again, let's do 182 minus 158, which again gives us 24. So we now know that the boys' heights are now more spread out, and so their range is greater. And there we are. We've got 3 points and 3 marks in the bag. Beautiful. Okay, question 27. So the diagram shows a prism placed on a horizontal floor. And the prism has height 3 meters. And the volume of the prism is 18 meters cubed. And so the pressure on the floor due to the prism is 75 newtons per meter squared. So let's work out the force exerted by the prism on the floor. Well, so let's take a look at the volume here. The volume is merely our cross-section multiplied by our height. And so we know that our volume is 18. We know that our height is 3. So what must our cross-section be? So as it's a multiplied by 3, let's take that over and make it a divided by 3. So we now know that our cross-section is 6. And then we're going to use the formula that they've given us, that pressure equals force divided by area. So we have our pressure, which is 75 newtons, And we also understand that our area is 6. So that's our cross section. So our force divided by 6 gives us 75. So let's make our force the subject. So this divided by 6 will now come over and we'll make it multiplied by 6. So force equals 75 times 6, which in this case will be 450 newtons. So we now know that the force exerted by the prism on the floor will be 450 newtons. So again, what have I done here? I've simply worked out the volume, which was the cross section multiplied by the height. So I've made my cross section the subject before substituting it into the formula pressure equals force over area, finally giving me my result. Okay, question 28. Write these numbers in order of size, starting with the smallest. So as you can see, we've got 3 numbers that are in standard form, but 1 is in our decimals. So let's go ahead and also turn that into standard form. So we now know that's going to be 6.72 times 10 to the power of minus 4. And the reason I've found that it's minus 4 is because we need to jump 4 times, 1, 2, 3, and 4 to make the answer between 1 and 10. And we're going to do that for all of them. So for the next one, we've got 672. So again, I want to make my answer between 1 and 10. So again, I'll divide this by 100. So we've got 1 jump and 2 jumps. So 6.72 times 10, but this time to the power of 6 because we've jumped 2 further times. And again, I'm going to do the same here and jump once. So 6.72 times 10, and this time it's going to be to the power of minus 3. And that's because my number is getting smaller. And we can leave the first one as it is, which is 6.72 times 10 to the power of 5. So now I've gone ahead and done that. Let's go ahead and order these. So we simply know that this will be our number 1 because it's got a minus 4, which is our smallest. And again, when we write out our answer, don't forget to write it in the original number that was given to us, not the number that you have multiplied out. Number 2 we know is going to be our minus 3, 67.2 times 10 to the power of minus 4. We know our third one is going to be 6.72 times 10 to the power of 5. And that leaves us with our final one, which is going to be 672 times 10 to the power of 4. So step 1, you make your answers between 1 and 10 before ordering them. Okay, let's go over to our second final question here. So given that a over b equals 2 over 5 and b over c equals 3/4, let's find a, b, c as a ratio. So the first thing I'm going to do is simply write down a to b and b to c. So we now know that a to b is 2 to 5 and b to c is 3 to 4. But the one thing we have in common is our b's. So we need to make that the same. So let's simply multiply them out. So we're left with 15 here because we times this by 3 and times this by 5. And again, we times a 2 by 3, which gives us 6. And we times a 4 by 5, which gives us 20. So now we've finally made our b the same. We can simply put them together. So that leaves us with a, b, c is 6, 15, and 20. So our answer will be 6 to 15 to 20 for A, B, and C. And the final question. Let's make Q the subject of P equals 6Q plus 7. So let's write this out once more. Okay, so we need to make Q the subject. So we need to isolate Q. So the first thing I'm going to do is minus 7 on both sides. So I have P minus 7 equals 6Q before taking the 6 over. And as you know, when a number is with a variable, that means it's a multiplication. So we're going to divide both sides by 6. So we will now have P minus 7 divided by 6 equals Q. And that is our answer. And then finally, let's simplify. M to the power of minus 2 to the power of minus 3. So the first thing to understand here is when we have brackets within powers, that means we need to multiply them. So that means it's going to be m to the power of minus 2 times minus 3. So we now know that that's going to be m to the power of 6 because two negatives make a positive. So our final answer will be m to the power of 6. And I hope that paper was super useful and it was easy to go through each individual question in detail. If you have any comments or any ideas on what you would like me to show you next, please feel free to comment below once again. I hope this session was interactive and I can't wait to see you again. See you in the next video.